Welcome to the Social Selling Podcast by Linking into Sales with myself, Martin Brossman, Greg Heyer, and Elise Archer, who's off closing deals and coaching people in sales and not with us today. We got a terrific show coming up, and it's on sales recruiting and really understanding how sales professionals need to be selling themselves with Tricia Lucas of Lucas Select. It's an exciting show, but before we do it, Greg, we have some news to talk about, don't we?
Oh, this is one of my favorite things other than interviewing fantastic guests. And I'm just say up front right now, I'm really sorry I was not there for this one with Tricia because we've known Tricia for quite a while, but I hope everybody enjoys it. So let's talk about a couple social selling news items though. All right. So all you guys that are out there listening to the podcast, how often have you come across this profile picture of a woman and you needed to take and send some sort of message to her and you did something totally wrong, something you definitely would not do in person, or maybe you would and you're shameless? Well, there's a report out right now that says that married business women are revealing the fact that they are being forced to add Mrs. to their names on LinkedIn just to take and completely, try to ward off some of this unwanted solicitation, right? Exactly. It's inappropriate messages that are coming across LinkedIn. And we know for a fact that this happens because I don't get them, but Elise has gotten them. And we've talked about this offline. I think we may have mentioned a couple times in some previous episodes, but it's incredibly disturbing actually to know that there are people out there that do this. But unfortunately, these are, these folks, and if you're one of them, I'm probably going to offend you, and I'm glad if I do, because the behavior is not appropriate. It's narcissistic. You shouldn't do it, and there's no reason. Listen, we're equal, right? Men, women. There's no difference really between us, other than we got one side of the. It was a 50-50 chance, right? So what I'm saying is that do not inappropriately use LinkedIn to go after women, and women if. You probably shouldn't do it to men also, but go ahead and read the article. We got a link in the article here in the show notes about it. Definitely take a look, read this, share it. With everything that's kind of going on in Hollywood too, I just heard today Charlie Rose, of all people, is being accused of inappropriate behavior towards young women, and not cool. All right, so. We don't support it. We don't condone it. Martin, what do you got to say about it?
Well, first of all, it's a business networking. So if you want to become the number one slime ball on either side of the thing, use it as a dating site. And second of all, we all know in the history of humanity that it's been wrong when men use their power for attempting to get sex, or women use sex as a tool to get power, or some other combination of that is wrong. And we certainly don't tolerate either of those or recommend those. And so anyway, if you see someone doing it, tell them to stop, because I'm sure none of our listeners are doing that. And if it's a man or a woman, there's no acceptable thing. We want LinkedIn to be a safe business professional site for building quality relationships that are earned over time based on competency and helping people out. So that's right. What I say on it.
All right. Very good. And well said, Martin. Let's keep LinkedIn classy. Right. So, all right. Next bit of news. Let's go to something a little bit more, techie. So LinkedIn has a couple new integration partners. So Inside Sales, Insight Squared, and SalesLoft have all partnered with LinkedIn. Inside Sales has developed an integration with LinkedIn that basically covers this predictive playbook sales tool, which is designed to help companies build their sales pipeline and increase conversions with artificial intelligence and actionable data. If you remember a few episodes, we actually talked with a couple guys from Inside Sales. So definitely go back and check out that episode. Insight Squared has an integration that will provide data on the critical actions taken by sales teams to help them reach peak performance. That's pretty cool. So they've integrated with LinkedIn Sales Navigator for that. And then SalesLoft, who I was a early fan of their platform because it was nice to be able to go out and kind of build these Google bullying queries in order to get a list of search results and then scrape them off into an Excel spreadsheet and go append the data. But unfortunately, they don't do that anymore. They actually have a pretty cool new integration where now with SalesLoft, with the integration with LinkedIn, in SalesLoft, you can now view and take action on Sales Navigator Sales Navigator data directly from the SalesLoft platform. Wow, that's a lot of lofty things to say. So anyways, so some cool things. If you're a user of any of those platforms, leave a comment below on YouTube, where you can definitely watch this out on our YouTube channel. Just go out to the website, click on the link there, or send us a tweet and tell us what you think of this new integration, because it's been out for probably about a month now. So definitely check it out. And then the last bit of news is kind of some exciting things with video on LinkedIn. If you have ever done advertising, and I think we've talked about advertising previously on the podcast, if on LinkedIn, you can now finally start advertising using autoplay video. So you've been on Facebook, haven't you? And you see video automatically start playing as you kind of scroll through your feed, whether it's on a mobile device or on desktop. Well, LinkedIn now is going to start auto playing. Now, I've seen this, and it's not quite as fresh or as quick as how it works on Facebook, because you kind of have this swirly wheel that kind of goes around, and then finally it pops up to start playing. So LinkedIn, ever since their redesign, has been kind of delaying everything because they're afraid of people scraping that. But definitely check it out. If you do advertising on LinkedIn, this is another ad unit. And one other thing to add to it as well, we were kind of talking about this offline today. We did see that LinkedIn has this new tracking pixel you could take and put on your website. So any marketers listening to this, definitely check this out. If you do any advertising on LinkedIn, make sure you do take and put your tracking pixel from LinkedIn on your website. Use Google Tag Manager or put it directly into your site. The thing what you're going to be able to do with this is start tracking who's coming out of LinkedIn and into your website. And basically, you'll be able to start creating lookalike audiences using this pixel, similar to how we do on Facebook. The key here is that you can also take your CRM data, all your email addresses or business names and things like that, and you can now upload that directly into LinkedIn and do some account-based targeting, and you can do some individual targeting with ads. So yes, now you can upload up to 300,000 records into LinkedIn.
Wow.
And advertise. Pretty powerful.
I have one more thing I want to talk about that I didn't put on the list, and that's with Nimble, which is one of our friends. I've just getting it integrated with QuickBooks and Constant Contact, a new feature. So might put a link in there about that. But I'm pretty excited about it, and this is that integration I always wanted, to have my accounting and my Nimble and my calendar and my Constant Contact. So all the data is integrated. So we're starting to ramp that up in my business, and if someone else is doing that, love to talk to them. But I'm really excited about that feature. So shout out to John and the gang for getting this working.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Always good. Whether you're a, top end B2B salesperson with a quota or a B2B salesperson who's fighting for a living, then I think, we try to cover all the bases here on the podcast. So who's our sponsor today, Martin?
We have a fantastic sponsor, Greg. It's socialselling.training, where you can get resources and learn how to do social selling, where there's just huge number of courses, information there, and training with lots of hours that were put in by two guys pounding away, insisting we must do this or record it to make it better. And it's our fundamentals of social selling class. So Greg, anything else you want to add on to that? It's that we love for you to do it, and it's a good course. We're proud of it.
Yeah, we worked really hard at getting this finally out the door. As a matter of fact, we're going to start spinning up a redo of our LinkedIn profile course here pretty soon. So definitely be prepared for that, because chances are we'll probably open the floodgates on that one again. And, Martin said on the last show that, if you were listening and, that he has a promo code and, it may run out by the time you reach him. If you contact me, I'm just going to give you one because that's the kind of guy I am. And we know that actually the reason why is because we know people listen to podcasts and we look at the stats that we can get on the downloads that we get for the show. And we know that people listen to every episode month over month over month, right? So this podcast was published or produced in November of 2017. And there's a chance it could be November 2018, 2019 when you actually listen to the podcast. So and chances are there might be a slight business change around then. We could continue to have the courses available at socialselling.training, or we could possibly move them into a marketplace. Whatever the case may be, come and contact us and find out how do you get access to these courses. We're going to make it available as long as we're doing this, and we hope that you can get some extreme value from it. Make your quota, but more importantly, along with making your quota, you basically need just become a great salesperson who knows how to develop relationships, can use social in an appropriate way, and fully embrace the fact that social selling is about opening, not closing. So reach out to me if you want that discount code.
Or me, I'll give it to you. Greg, let's talk about the Internet Summit a minute. And a few things. We both were there. Great shout out to the Internet Summit team. It's one of the best produced summits I've been to. I just can't acknowledge them enough. But there are a few things that we saw, and we want to mention some things from it. So, Greg, you start.
Yeah. So, first of all, if you haven't heard of the Internet Summit, just go to internetsummit.com. It's also affiliated, or it's the same company that produces Digital Summit, which has a number of different cities that they go to around the country. They bring a number of really cool marketing professionals, people who are practitioners, those who are maybe they're influencers, and they bring them out, and you get 30-minute, half an hour, 30-minute or 45-minute sessions. It's also an awesome networking opportunity. I've been 7 of the last 10 years to this particular event. I'm going to go next year too. So plan for November, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. Plan to come out. It's very affordable to come out. It's great to fly into Raleigh, spend some time. We have a great downtown area, and come out, say hi. We could definitely hang out. So there are a couple sessions that I thought were really, really helpful. One was a session about AR, or augmented reality, and VR, so virtual reality. Two different kind of approaches to creating engagement. Right. So if so AR would be, let's say you hold up your phone and you're looking down a shopping aisle, and all of a sudden these little things start popping up on your screen, kind of pointing out where something might be on sale. Okay. Or if you're at a conference and you hold your phone up, and then some other images are kind of overlaid on top of reality. So we're augmenting reality. So there's some really fun applications with that. I thought one of the most amazing uses of this, which I am going to go to Amazon and actually order this book, was actually using a children's book to create an augmented reality experience and storytelling. Now, why do I find that this is so amazing? It's because we learn to tell stories and understand stories as a child. So what better time period to be able to go in and take a look at AR, but through a child's eyes, right? So go out to Amazon. I don't have a particular title in mind, but look at the children's books that offer an augmented reality experience. Grab your phone and sit down with your kid and take a look at this book. I think you'll enjoy it just as much as they will. You both will discover something brand new at the same time. Okay. Now VR is kind of incredible. Recently, we got a new customer. It happens to be a Mercedes-Benz dealership. And he is absolutely nuts right now about virtual reality, to the point where he is, we're going to be going out to the track, to a racetrack down in Florida, and doing a shoot out there and basically doing this virtual reality race experience. We're going to take and put a 360 camera up there inside and outside the car, and we're going to go like crazy around that track. and record this, and then we're going to bring it back to the dealership and let customers have a chance to really experience what it's like to have a VR experience where maybe you can't get down to Florida and go out to a track with your Mercedes, but this is going to be a kind of a cool experience. And the presenter that we heard from actually showed how Acura had done this. And they took 5 racing influencers and did took the Microsoft HoloLens, put it on their head, created an augmented or virtual reality experience, but it was driving around an airport strip, basically an airstrip, and they just were driving this course, but they broadcasted it live on Facebook too. So they ended up getting like 800,000 views on this live that watched the event for over an hour. It's a pretty incredible experience, something to definitely consider. So that was a lot of fun. Martin, what was your fun event that your fun talk you went to?
Well, Lisa Mathis Towner with Red Hat talking about social selling. It was really exciting because, Greg, you and I got to work on developing some of the very early intro material they were using they hired NC State Technology Training Solutions for fundamentals on social selling, and then to meet her and see the fantastic work she's done in integrating to Red Hat social selling. And it was terrific because I contacted her on Twitter and said, I want to get you on the show. And then went to her event. She said, whoever's the person who tweets the best stuff out about this talk will win my book, which I also won. And I think I can say I social sold her on being on the show. She did a really good job of talking about the process of integrating it into Red Hat and the work and getting people's input. And that's what I want to bring her on the show with. But I also want to be asking her personally, how did she see the tipping point for managers to get sold on social selling? Because that's something I hear from salespeople. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's going to be one of the shows by the end of the year is our goal. And she's on for doing it. And she did a fantastic job at the Internet Summit. I also just want to reiterate the concept of stories is critical, as usual, and how it really takes some work to capture the micro and macro stories in a business and understand the importance of getting to the point in the first 8 seconds. So that's a takeaway, a reminder that we, don't do a long intro, get to it. And then a number of people, Greg, were just bringing up the fact that with Facebook throttling back the organic, that YouTube and good old blogs and emails are still very important if you're creating the content people want. So those were a few takeaways as well that I wanted to add.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to give probably a quick shout out to the vlog boss, Amy Schmidauer. And she was actually, that reference you made to the first 8 seconds actually came from her talk. And so when you're doing a YouTube video, basically her suggestion and strong recommendation is that you get to the point in the first 8 seconds, otherwise someone will probably click off. So don't plan on trying, like if you're going to start doing video on YouTube, don't think you need this big long intro 30-second sound like we do on the podcast. A little bit different for a podcast, but on a YouTube video, it's a little bit different. You should definitely just get to the point as fast as possible, hook them and keep them going as well. So Amy also, when she launched, she wrote a book called Vlog Like a Boss. I'll put a link in the show notes to it if you want to get it on Amazon. But she does a great job in her book. I was following her launch of it. She actually did a vlog every day on YouTube, talking about just various things going through her process, getting it launched, finishing up things in the book, things with her new husband as well. And I got a really good glimpse into the kind of things that she has to go through. And I had another good opportunity. After I tweeted her before the event, a couple days before, and I said, "Hey, you're coming to Raleigh. I have my copy of the book. Would you sign it after you're done with your talk?" And she's like, "Absolutely." So I let her do her talk. I did not want to interrupt her, even before it or anything like that. And I waited to the end. And I was very fortunate too, because she actually gave me about 10 minutes extra of time for us to kind of have a quick conversation. I tried to convince her to come back to Raleigh with her husband, so that way they can talk at a local event. But overall, it was fantastic. I'm glad that I used Twitter to reach out to the speaker to get some additional insights from Amy. So Amy, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon, definitely. So
yeah, she did an excellent job. Well, Greg, let's get on with the show. And I, of course, just mention again, our sponsor is Social Selling Training, where we have the fundamentals of social selling that you can learn online. And our topic today is very important, is how sales professionals sell themselves in their career. And I've met so many that have kind of forgotten that that's an important piece along the way.
All right. Well, like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't here for this one. I had something come up. Martin, you did a great job on getting this one going. So everyone, Tricia Lucas is a fantastic person. So if you're, if you're ever interested in kind of understanding how to do, how a recruiter kind of thinks about sales professionals and marketing professionals as well, you'll definitely enjoy this episode. So let's go check it out.
I am so excited to have Tricia Lucas, because I have met so many salespeople that are hardworking, ethical people, and then something happens and the division goes away and they're out of the job, and they miss the point of developing marketing, the return on investment of them as a product. And then when I work with them to get them to think about that, they'll get a job. But the thing is, it's a uphill battle when they wait until they lose the job to get it, or to get marketed internal in the company. Sometimes they miss the opportunities. So I wanted to get you as an expert. I know, and I've known you for many years, as highly competent with a passion of helping place and locate salespeople, as well as many other things you work with. So would you start by just telling people a little bit about your background, and then we'll dig into this topic?
Sure. So I run Lucas Select. We are a boutique recruiting firm, started in 2007, and we really focus on placing technology, sales, and marketing people. We do that largely with smaller companies and startups.
So you're really looking for, you're working with companies that are entrepreneurs running fast.
Absolutely.
That are hungry with a passion for some real growth. Is that right?
Absolutely. Very fast growth. So every hiring decision is critical.
Right. Because they have a small team and they're generating a lot of revenue on it.
And they need to do so quickly. They don't have a lot of time to make mistakes.
Excellent. Well, I want to just start with, what would you say is some of the top things a sales professional needs to think about before either he wants to be promoted, or something happens and his division goes away and he's out of a job? What should be top of mind for them in almost the social selling of them as a professional?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that we see, and it kind of still baffles my mind, but people wait until they're downsized or they're out of a job before they really start thinking about their profile. It's not just having to go and get your resume updated. You really need to work on your social presence. Nowadays, we don't just look at resumes. We look at the complete person. And to do that, it includes your digital footprint, whether you're in the technology space or not. Obviously that's going to play a stronger role in terms of what it is that you're selling. But with my particular clients, the type of candidates and the sales candidates that I'm looking for are people that are up to date and they're relevant. They are, they're passionate. They know what their true strengths are. I think that's another big issue too that I see with candidates. They tend to want to say that they're great at everything. Nobody's great at everything. You need to understand what you're good at, what you're not, and what you are good at. You need to make sure you're really good at it. You understand how to promote that, and you're really doing the right kind of job to build your own personal brand.
It's the old idea of play to your strengths, not your weaknesses.
Yes.
I think it's really important.
I know I kind of just do a lot of things out there. We do a lot of we don't necessarily try to go out and do career counseling, but obviously along the way, whenever you are working with these type candidates, you kind of see areas where they're struggling. And, there's some very basic mistakes. But I think, again, going back to that person who finds themselves in a period of transition, they tend to panic when they're not prepared. And it's very hard to hide that kind of panic. And then there's this mad rush to suddenly go and build and develop I've got to go and suddenly develop my LinkedIn profile and make it look like I'm, such and such kind of person. And those things take time. Sales is a process, and sales is also about relationships. And a lot of times what I'm seeing nowadays is forced rush of trying to build those relationships, taking that shortcut. And you can't take the shortcut. And it's pretty obvious when you start looking at people's digital online presence, who's taking a shortcut and who's really sincere and has developed the time or has taken the time to develop the right relationships. You need people in sales that understand how to build that business relationship.
Yeah, so you got you can see the history. You have very little digital footprint, then a surge right before they meet you, and now they're trying to get placed, and then there's some excuse. I know I should have been on LinkedIn, but I was busy taking care of my dog or whatever they're doing, instead of realizing they need to put a little bit of time on their calendar, either once a week or even once a month, to ask first, am I getting the content out that shows my insight in my field of expertise for my career, either for internal promotions or something happens and changes. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's very evident. And it's not, what you try to look for is you're going back to the journey of that person or that candidate. We all have things that take us away, from our life of so many things that we have to get done. I think we've all taken social breaks. But the important thing is being able to understand what it is about that story or what's going on behind that story. Did somebody have a hardship or something else was going on? And you take that into balance as to how people are prioritizing their lives and how they're managing these things. An employer doesn't, like it or not, and if you're going through something personal, an employer doesn't want to be the one that suffers for that. So you have to look for somebody that understands how to be able to balance things. And there's a lot of things that you can learn by following a candidate's journey through their online presence.
Well, could you give an example of how a candidate, a sales professional, could do a digital audit of themselves just to start? Something simple as maybe going to Chrome incognito and Googling themselves in quotes, or where would you have them start to just see what's out there?
Yeah, I think one thing would help someone to it's very hard for people to look in the mirror and to get, so when people are ready to do that and you can have that conversation, you really got to go back and look at your own profile or your own presence and ask yourself why somebody would hire you. I mean, what is your own personal brand? What kind of value are you bringing to that potential person that's going to employ you? Are you a problem solver, or are you a problem maker? Are you innovative? Are you energetic? Are you constantly, does your profile demonstrate that you're somebody that's always trying to make things better? Or are you just happy with status quo? And that's a lot of things at times that comes out when you're looking at somebody. I'm looking at somebody that jumps off the page. That's not a status quo person, somebody that likes to make things happen. And I sometimes differ in how other recruiting professionals might look at what we might call job hoppers. Not that I want to take us off in a totally different tangent, but job hoppers I don't just like to label somebody a job hopper. If I see them transitioning multiple times in their career, I want to understand why. Often they're involved in multiple different startups. So it might be that they get so excited about technology and they love following that next latest and greatest thing or solution, or something that inspires them and keeps them motivated. But they're always wanting to learn the next greatest thing, as opposed to, okay, I understand this product, I understand this market, I think I'll just stay here for this company and keep selling. That's not always enough for people. And I like sales professionals that are just intellectually curious. And there are things that I can look for in social and digital footprints that are going to reveal somebody that is intellectually curious. And it's a variety of things. There's not any one thing, but I also would ask people if they're going to go back and evaluate themselves. Can you tell me 5 of your top thought leaders in your industry? If you're a marketing professional or you're a sales professional, who do you follow? Who follows you? What conferences do you go to? What are you doing to stay relevant? What kind of books are you reading? That tells me a lot right there too. A lot of people get a little stale. They wait for on-the-job training. They're at an employer and it's like, well, I'd love to go learn about that, but my employer's not paying to send me to go do that. Therefore, they don't do it. People that are like, I want to go learn that technology, or I'm going to go follow that person, or I'm going to figure out this latest tool, and no one's going to stop me, because I'm just that kind of a person that wants to go figure it out or go learn something new. So these sound like they're very soft skills, but they suggest a lot about the drive of that person and that employer. And that employee, and what that would mean to the employer.
There was someone who took my social media management course, and he was in used car sales, but they won an award to go to Las Vegas, and he said, can I have that money and take this course? And he got them to write the check for the course and not going to Las Vegas, and then he came back and he was crushing it in the department, because he goes, we need this and it's good for my career. And to me, putting that story in, forgo the award to take the social media class, I think might be an example, if you're looking for someone like that, to make sure you let your story be known.
And that is a great story. That's the great story that is perfect for when you start talking about, okay, now when we start talking about interview tips and how you want to stand out. But how you would relate that on your profile would be what would probably resonate there is the fact that if you're watching somebody like that online and they're going to conferences, and it's not that they're at the conference, it's they're engaging and they're following people and they're following him, and he's building upon that experience. And then what did you do as a result of attending that conference? What did you learn, or did you blog about something, or did you take that back, and make something of it, as opposed to, some of us leave a conference and we're like, okay, great, now we go back to work. And were you inspired? Did you bring it back? Did you develop something as a result? Was there any action taken?
I think that's excellent. So we're looking for, like I said, we're going on the web and looking at ourselves, possibly Googling incognito, and see what's out there under our name. Now, if our name's Joe Smith, pick the industry, some signature of you, right? So Joe Smith in the field, or Joe Smith's CPA, or something like that. Figure out building that brand, if you have a common name, around your area. And you and I know that on Google, it's going to find us if we create enough content. I've done that. I have a client that wrote a book, and there's someone with a similar name that has a bigger brand. And over years, he's slowly been building, associating with the topic. And Google now knows the difference as well. Yeah. You making that effort and setting aside that time so that if you Google, there's something there. I'm really learning how, if there's no digital footprint, they'll probably trust you less. If there's a digital footprint that surges where you didn't do it until finally you need the job, they might trust you less. And I'm even hearing, and I don't know if you've seen this, where they have, 5 quick recommendations from people, but they never gave one. I had a job hunter going, I'm suspicious of someone who never gives one even, where it's only kind of a sign of just a taker. So those are a few I've heard on the road that are heads up in this area. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, you just kind of hit on a point too when you talk about a taker. I've been doing this long enough that I've seen a number of different candidates and people that I know cycle in and cycle out of a number of different jobs, and you can tell when they're sort of back on the market, whether they're reaching out or what. And it amazes me as to how many times people continue to make the same mistake. As soon as they get that next job, boom, everything that we talked about in terms of keep your networking up, keep your digital activity up. And I've always been really amazed at the people that once they land somewhere, they sort of forget to thank everybody that they interacted with that may or may not have directly resulted in them getting that next position, but were there for support or to point them in the right direction or to give them some tips or advice or make an introduction. And so people, again, that kind of goes back to taking a shortcut when you're developing relationships. They didn't learn from it, and then you sort of shoot yourself in the foot to think that you're in this day and age and in this type of economic churn that we're in, that you're not you couldn't very well be in that same position again in a few months or a year or whatever. It's just uncontrollable now with recessions and layoffs and acquisitions. It's beyond your control. And so people, I think, that aren't constantly trying to stay relevant and keep those relationships up are just making a big mistake. And I'm just amazed at how many people I see do it over and over again.
Yeah, you brought up a great point. The simple thing is you get the job, take a moment and thank the people who helped you with introductions. Give them an update. Say, let me tell you, thank you, I got it. There's a friend I gave some advice to, and he sent me a note and he said, hey, I got an interview Monday, and I just want you to know I think I might get it. Thanks for everything. And he just texted me. And it's like, well, if he needs help again, I'll probably remember it. Versus, wait a second, that took me time, and then I didn't hear anything from him after that. So I think that's just a good housekeeping tool as well.
Yeah. And, if you want, you have time for me, I could tell you a real quick story on that about something that I still talk about. And this happened when I left SAS in 2007 to start Lucas Select. And on my way out, I had a former employee that worked with me at IBM that was dying to get into SAS, and asked if I could do a referral inside. And I'm absolutely, this guy, I love this guy. It worked for me. I was happy to do it. And I wrote a note over to the hiring manager and he ended up getting hired. Do you know, 1 year later, I got a delivery of champagne and cheese and this gorgeous basket. And I opened it up and he said, I just celebrated my 1 year anniversary at SAS. And I just am so happy. And I just wanted to thank you again for your taking the time to do a referral. 1 year later. And I surely don't expect that, but that story, I still get goosebumps. People just don't do that. And he did a year later, and he's, usually you might be thankful like right after,
right?
But to still be that passionate and gracious a year later was just incredible. It's a story that sticks with me.
That's an excellent story. Would you share some of the I can't believe they did this stories? Of course, protect confidentiality. I like these because sometimes people go, oh my gosh, I'm doing that now. I need to stop.
There's so many shockers, but let me, over and over again, you see the I guess the uh-ohs that you're mostly on, it's more like Facebook postings. And as we have seen in the last, it's definitely been a very eventful couple of years with the election cycle. I think I'm just constantly amazed. And I'm by no means one that, I know Greg is more about like Facebook is for his like personal belief. He tries to keep things separate. I don't think does it great for B2B right now. I don't know if they'll figure it out, but I like to go and understand the personal side of a candidate, and that's more about where their passions are. And I'm fine with people being vocal and supportive if they're really passionate about one side or the other.
Right.
But it's something that I think should be based more upon good information, good facts, good talking points. Let's have meaningful discussions as opposed to the dismissive or the emotion. Yeah, the rants. You know, I really, you know, if I see somebody that, you know, hey, I believe in this, or hey, I want to, you know, this because, and then here's some facts, and you're trying to share and have a meaningful discussion, that's going to tell me a lot about a person. I mean, I'm not going to, I don't want to get somebody that is emotionally disruptive in one of my client sites that can't professionally handle themselves, because, you know, if they pull that in front of my clients' customers, you know, we've got a problem. And so that temperature check, absolutely amazed that more people aren't aware that once you put something out there in digital, that they think they can go back and delete it and it's going to be gone. And so I do typically see that a lot more in the younger generation. But, you know, there's been some surprises too on some, you know, with some more senior professional candidates that we all think we know better, right?
Right.
Some of the other, you know what? I had an uh-oh this week. I can't believe you did this to me. I had a candidate literally just not show up for his first day.
Wow.
A sales professional. No one has ever done that to me before.
Wow.
And this was, I'm still floored because the company is a well-known company in the industry and is doing nothing but getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And so when we push very professional point to just look at it that way, he just did an awful lot of damage in terms of future employment in the particular industry he's in now. So I'm still scratching my head over that one. Those are some really big no-nos. It's one thing if you get a counter offer, but to not show up and then to have to make the client go and look for you, and then to shoot off an email, not even to have the courtesy to go to the recruiter or to the hiring manager to say something's come up, or, you know, I just can't do this, but to do it in an email when you've already, you know, had contact with this person and with the hiring manager and with their bosses. You've been brought in on leadership calls before your first day. I've seen a lot, but I was really taken aback on that one.
This is a new one.
It doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you talk about dealing with a professional salesperson who has had multiple jobs and has been successful in multiple jobs, to suddenly have that happen, you're trying to figure out, how could I have avoided this? How could have I vetted this out? You know, because, you know, I've got to go back and explain to my client. So this boy upset me. He upset my client. He made my client look bad in front of his leadership. He had to get HR. We had to send we had to get the laptop back from him that he'd already had. I mean, it was. Yeah. I don't understand how you do something like that this day and age and think it's not going to have any repercussions. So I was completely floored.
Yeah, you know, it's the idea. I remember someone said they were late for something, and I said, and didn't communicate. even. And I said, says, well, I have a good excuse. I go, well, a good excuse for me to be late and not communicate is death, my own. And looked at it, Other than that, there's no excuse, And I was ready to write an article called, the new competitive advantage, integrity, just showing up in the area. But
Martin, it's so true.
To note,
yeah, I'm trying to figure out because me, I'm going to get this out on a blog somehow.
Right.
I was really angry. And I just went back from angry to shock, and I'm like, okay, I've got to make good. I've got to bring some kind of positive out on this. So it's going to come out on a blog somewhere. You just wait. I got to calm down long enough to sort of get my objective hat on and put it on paper, but
exactly.
Or put it on digital.
Well, in the social selling routine, we talk about having a social selling routine in our training. I thought we could talk a little bit about what would be a good career routine to have on a regular basis. And we might just make this up of, what should they program into their life? Because clearly I've seen so many people, like you said, they get the job, they're in it, and then they kind of push all that aside, that maybe they have to put it on their calendar as a regular event, set aside Sunday morning for my career, and think about what are they doing beyond just showing up for the job. And I'd like your advice is if there was a routine or something, or a few tips of what would be good, because this has to be built over time. You're waiting to the last minute to put your LinkedIn profile. There's a signature you surged, and now that's a big red flag to be suspicious of you. It's wait, what else are they hiring? Yeah. What else did they throw together?
Probably a really simple solution to that is to do, you need to grade yourself. So what does your employer do? Usually, you have at least an annual review, right? If you've got a semi-annual, but I would put it on your calendar to do a quarterly review and really sit, look at yourself and say, okay, if something happened to me today, am I prepared? Am I marketable? Am I marketable? And we brought in a speaker a couple months ago for our transitions that we do monthly at the Frontier for job seekers. Mm-hmm. And spoke a lot about the convergence of, first of all, what we tell the job seekers when they do find themselves in transition is a lot of times this is a time where people start to question, well, am I really doing what I should be doing? Or maybe this is a time for a change. So that's a very good time to question, have that, not so self-doubt, but like, is this time to start a different journey? And so you often see people go through that. And what we tell them is, well, what is it you're passionate about? What is it that you really like to do? Then what are you really good at? And chances are what you like to do is probably what you're good at. And then you take those two things, but it's got to be valuable to somebody. I'd love to go and, my passion is dogs and animals. And, if I could figure out a way to, make a great living off of that, I would have done it by now. So just because you like something doesn't mean you're going to be able to pay your bills. So you have the convergence of those three pieces are really important. And so if you're doing a self-check every quarter of what is my market value, because your market value, is going to change. And if you're not keeping up and, especially if you're, tell this is my marketing folks, there's so much going on in the digital technology. If you're part of that older generation, then you're going to be branded as a traditional marketing person, not digital. So you've always got to prove that you're on top of things digitally. But in the world of sales technology, as a sales person, you've got to be able to stay in touch and on top of the ever-changing technology and how that's communicated. Because, the old days of us picking up the phone, way back when I started in sales, was, it's changed. People aren't answering the phones anymore. So you've got to be smarter, and blasting them with emails every day, that doesn't work either. So how are you building those relationships? when you're selling technology. It's the same principles as when you're going to be looking for that next opportunity. And you don't want to suddenly be all of a sudden, oh, well, John's all of a sudden connected with like 100 people this week. He must be looking for a job. I mean, that's just the age-old telltale.
Right. Okay, so that's several things. That's good. Setting aside at least a quarterly meeting with yourself.
Yeah.
And then I would think at least once a month or once a week or something, some time block to just kind of ask, have I done something that it would be appropriate to update my LinkedIn profile? Is there something I want to show I understand? And then commit to writing an extended post on LinkedIn as both a tool for teaching and learning it myself and getting a presence out there.
Yeah, I mean, think about how these thought leaders go around on the speaker circuit. Ask yourself, what am I a thought leader about? What kind of leadership have I demonstrated in my role here? Or, and it's not just that I made my number, or when as salespeople we all like to blow out our commission plans. That's great. Usually, when you've demonstrated some kind of leadership, or you've done the right things in order to be successful doing that. So how is it that you can explain that or demonstrate that? You've got to toot your own horn, because nobody else is going to do it for you.
And then I would think also just showing that you understand the idea of a customer-facing presence on the web is important too.
Yeah.
Because you can see if you were looking at a sales professional and they're clearly creating content that shows insight into their customer, that's a digital signature for you,
Yeah.
And I would think that's another area.
Yeah. And it's, because what you could be so good social media is, what also makes a very bad salesperson is you're pushing your narrative or your content. You're not necessarily delivering something that somebody wants. And so the one thing you never want to do when hiring a salesperson is, it's somebody that's going to show up and immediately start, okay, here's the speeds and beats of my product or my service, instead of, Mr. Customer, what is it that's keeping you awake at potential customer? What is it that's keeping you awake at night? What is driving your business? What is impeding your business? How is it that we might be able to work together to come up with a solution, so that you no longer have that 2:00 angst? That kind of skill is what makes a good sales, especially when you're talking about consultative enterprise type sales professionals.
Interesting. That's a real good piece. I also like to take a little time of going into where you see is the future of sales coming up in the next year, because we've got more and more tools coming out giving customer insight on the web. I've been using, for example, Nimble for a long time. A CRM, I put your name in, it looks on the web and starts bringing in content for them. Things like Crystal Knows, we interviewed him. What do you see as coming down the pike as the future in sales in any way, either technology or things you need to be paying attention to, or tools or education, any of those?
Yeah, and I don't know if there's really any one magic bullet or magic tool to watch. And I think that's part of the problem is there's so much noise and there's so much clutter and there's so much things coming down, that this is going to be the next latest and greatest, that we tend to get distracted and we tend to forget the basics. And the basics, you can't shortcut a relationship. And at the end of the day, sales is a process. Sales is also about relationships. And it tends to get lost and convoluted because we're so digitally focused now. But you can't beat the face-to-face. You can't beat that kind of a customer contact. Sure, digital plays a role in a certain part of the sales process. A lot of salespeople now are finding that, customers have the ability to go out and get an awful lot of information, and make up their own mind and be a little bit farther down the decision-making process when they're ready, to close. And so I think it's a constant battle of having to figure out exactly when in that part of the relationship do you insert yourself and start developing that. And that's why I still think, it's a mix of a little bit of everything. It's a mix of the online presence. It's a mix of the networking. It's a mix of the strong referrals. But if I just see so many people, especially the younger generation, that's been so digitally brought up that they forget to talk. They don't answer their phones. They do everything on their phones, but talk on their phones. This texting, you can't text your way to a job offer. I mean, at some point you've got to be able to interface. And so good salespeople, professional salespeople aren't going to forget the basics. The tools are just going to hopefully make your life a little bit easier to get there, but they're all still designed to basically do the same thing and get you through the process. You've got to be smart about relying on those too much and forgetting your own personal brand. I mean, at the end of the day, you're always going to be Martin Brossman. I'm always going to be Tricia Lucas. Doesn't matter what company I work at. But your own personal brand is always going to follow you. And if you're not true to that, if you're not ethical, if you don't treat people right, it'll follow you. I just can't emphasize that enough. And when I was training people and I was training recruiters, it was like, I'm very, very sensitive to employer brand. And I'm very sensitive to, when I had my recruiters that weren't being nice to candidates on the phone because those candidates were no longer, attracted to them or they weren't going to be a fit. It's like, you don't treat people that way. That backfires on the company brand. For every bad experience candidate has with a company, it's going to be that much more marketing dollars you got to spend to fix it. So there's, I tend to be very, very sensitive about doing the right thing, being true to yourself, having your own personal brand, and standing behind yourself. And it's something that you'll see in my messaging. It's something that you'll see in my blogs, and it's something that whenever I speak or I'm doing coaching, that's just always going to be one of the things about me and what I believe in about this profession that's always going to come out strong.
Excellent. Well, Tricia, what advice do you have on just keeping your own edge in that area? Because I really believe that a lot of us, if we're allowed to drift, we have our own version of watch serial movies and eat bonbons or something. So we have to. I'm big on a structure that keeps us on our edge. I have my own distractibility where I go. Luckily, I don't party anymore or things like that. It was really, I'm blessed that I work to have people in my life that are honest if they think I'm not standing up for the person I want to be. But I want your advice, because I think what I hear you're saying is part of this work is putting yourself in environments where you are bettering yourself as a professional. You are developing your skills, just like you might find someone who notices that they're let's say someone my age that goes, I'm going to have to learn how to text to talk to some people. And then someone younger goes, I might have to go to Toastmasters to build some skills here, in front of people. So what's your advice on setting up those structures? Because that's one of the things that it looks like you're going to notice in a sales professional as well.
Yeah. I would, so there's probably a lot of things that I'm going to throw out because I've got a lot of things that you just sort of hit on.
I know. I
goes in my head.
You like 5 questions in one loaded thing.
Yeah. Well, I really, with candidates, and I'm just going to kind of take it back to what I know. And in talking, so first of all, how I keep myself on track and how I keep myself motivated and in check is right now I'm doing something that this is, you know, aside of, you know, if I could, you know, do something with dogs or animals, this is what I'm good at. And I spent, you know, as you know, my earlier career, I've had marketing and sales roles at 8 startups. I've worked at SaaS. I've worked at IBM. So I've tried a lot of different things. And it wasn't, you know, until we started Lucas Select, I was like, I really figured out how to marry my experience and my passions and do what I really enjoy doing. So as much as it was a bad day this Monday when this candidate did this to me, I had another candidate that we filled a position for the day before yesterday. And she was jumping through the phone. She was so excited. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I mean, she was over the moon. And that's my payoff. That is why I've always been a connector of people. And unfortunately, when you have open job positions, there's so many more people you have to tell, no, you're not a fit, that, you know, you're not going to the next level. But that one person that you get to tell that you did get the job, and, you know, transitions and being, you know, out of work, it's life-changing. People, it's stressful. It's financially difficult. It's emotionally difficult. People really struggle, you know, some more than others, but I've just seen people that are just completely devastated. And when you get that win, that's the sales win. That's the sales, you know, that's the salesperson is like, yes, we made a fit. I've got a happy client and I've got a happy candidate. And, you know, you're in the honeymoon period and they're excited. And that's why I do it. I mean, that's the piece that I love. And that was so great for that to happen on Tuesday, because I was like, just, you know, having a pity party on Monday, because I was just like, I couldn't believe somebody did this to me. And then, you know, this Tuesday we got that win, and I was like, yes, that's why we do it. And now it's on to the next one. But that's kind of the thing too. It's like, okay, now I got to go. Now you're sort of like, you want that. Now I got to have that fixed. I got to have that win again. You know, it's like you get that high. So I'm truly doing what I'm good at and what I love doing, and that's what I'm trying to communicate to some of the candidates out there when they're in transition. I was like, you know what, you know, you were griping about that job. You weren't really that happy. Remember, this is an opportunity now. Like, go make it happen. This is an opportunity for you to go find something that you love doing. And people, you know, just depending on your personality, some people will embrace that easier than others. I think that's the hardest thing for people, is to really follow that and to be comfortable following that, because they want to revert back to, even though they might be, it's still more familiar, you know. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for people. You really got to, you know, life is short. You really have to understand what you're good at, and then what you're passionate about. Figure out that market value. Make sure you can make a living paying the bills to do that. There's going to be, you know, I tried a few different things. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not scalable. That's not a repeatable process. That's not going to pay the bills. I wanted to make dog biscuits one time. But then I decided I didn't want to sit there and make, you know, with a cookie cutter for the rest of my life, you know. So you have, and you're going to fail. That's one of my favorite interview questions. Tell me about a time you failed.
Yeah. And
people that say, oh, I never failed, I'm like, well, you're not a risk taker. You're not that you're not going to get a job, but you're probably not the right kind of candidate for my startup companies, you know, so not a good fit. You've got to embrace yourself on what you're good at and what you're not. And there's a lot of people out there that don't want to admit what they're not good at, or they'll continue to focus so much on developing that skill. You know what? Get better at it so that you're not so nervous about what you're weak at, but you're probably never going to be, you're just probably not going to master that. Go master, you know, if you're really good at something, be the best. That, you know, be the best at it. And that's your personal brand. That's your market value.
Yeah. And share some of it online too. That's the other thing. You know, my statement is, if it's not online, I want you to pretend it didn't happen. You know, as far as the value of you of going, okay, this might be time to update a little piece on LinkedIn or something, or this might be a time to create a article or somebody online. So there's a
well, and I think when you're excited about it and you're doing something that you like, you're more apt to, it's not a chore to go out and to talk about it or to engage with others or to share it. You probably don't necessarily have to put something on your calendar like, oh, must go do something social online. If you're really in your element, then that's what's going to come out and that's what's going to resonate.
That's great advice. Excellent. Well, we've covered a lot of territory here, and what we're going to do is I want to see if there's anything else you think is important for an existing sales professional to focus on now while he's employed to either improve his value for getting promoted inside the company or improve his career for long-term growth.
I really go back to focusing on your personal brand. You need to be able to identify what your brand. Think about how companies develop a brand. Your favorite brands. They're like even the color. We had Barb Perkins come and talk to us. Even when you say the word pink now means something totally or brings it's all you'll think pink is this pretty soft color, but it also means breast cancer. There's so many things that it means now because of the brand building. Zappos is always another favorite brand that people talk about. Starbucks. It's more when you think about connecting with people and about trying to get your own branding across. I always go back to, it's not so much about what you say as much as I think it's about how you make people feel. When we go to these conferences and we hear all of these thought leaders speaking, I don't remember half of what they say. They all kind of have the same formula, and we kind of talk about if you're going to a marketing conference, they all have kind of the same messaging about the customer experience and yada yada. But to me, it's more about how do they make me laugh? Do they provide humor? Did they inspire me? Did I get chill bumps? Did they tell a compelling story? Those are the speakers that I remember. So you have to think about how it is that you're making someone else feel. And that all goes back to your personal branding, whether you're doing it online, like if you're going to be somebody online that's constantly like angry, you're not really making people feel good. So you're setting yourself up for kind of a negative, job seeking experience if that stuff is going to be evident online. If you're writing blogs that are constantly not a part of the solution, but maybe you want to watch your tone. You want to watch, are you helping people? Are you an expert? Are you talking about something that you're an expert at in your industry? Are you setting yourself up as that thought leader, as that industry expert? What are you doing, and what can you do for somebody that no one else can do? That's the question that you have to ask to answer, and that's what you need to get across in terms of developing your social profiles in order to continue to develop your career. That was probably a really long answer to your question.
Yeah, but great advice. Excellent. Students in school, they're already in school. What are some things that you look for that might be a sign this is a good candidate? Because I meet people with $100,000 in debt and they can't get a job today because it takes so much more to be marketable.
If I'm just, so for students, I'm real nervous about taking a chance on someone, and I'm talking about somebody that's getting out of school, doesn't really have any work history yet. So they just got their degree and they're trying. It's really nervous for me to take a chance on them if they haven't done any internships, if they haven't, and I'll tell you, Martin, for sales candidates, I love people that have worked as bartenders or waiters, waitresses. I just had the best luck in using that measurement to identify people that are going to be very strong in sales. You have to, when you're working in those kind of environments, you're not making great tips if you're not smiling at the customer and delivering and, that service with a smile. We don't always want to smile, but we know that we have to. So that tells me a lot about how you're dealing with the public, how you're dealing with customers, how you're managing your money, how you're multitasking, and just the pure fact that if you had to be someone who had to work their way through school and you still managed to do that, that takes a lot of dedication. And that's one of those, I'm going to get through school no matter what. And I'm not, and I think people that work their way through school tend to appreciate things a little bit more when they finally do get out and get into the real world.
That's great. Excellent. Tricia, Lucas, this was just fantastic. And I just want to find out how they can learn more about what you're doing and keep up with your articles. Where can they go online to find out? Because you've to me lived a pay it forward life in my experience, knowing you from different consulting groups we crossed paths on, and others some worked and some didn't, but it was each other and go, oh, we're both focusing to help on this project.
Exactly.
And might move forward and others just disappear. So, right? How can they learn more about you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Tricia Lucas. You can find me on Twitter at Tricia Lucas. You can go to my company website, which is lucasselect.com. You won't find me on Snapchat. I think those are the three. I do publish my blogs on our Lucas Select website. They're also on LinkedIn, which you can find on my LinkedIn profile. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter once you get onto lucasselect.com. And I think that's good. That's it.
Good. And also, I just want to say, what type of people are you looking for, just in case, and what type of employers are you looking for if they're hearing this and go, I want this person to help me find. So just take a moment and state that as well.
Sure. Well, so as far as the employers go, I have companies that are as small as 10 people, which is awesome, because then you really get to be a partner, a marketing partner with those clients, because they don't really have an HR department. So we can really add a lot of value there. Startups, technology companies, high growth companies, we're doing a lot of work. We've got several ad agencies, marketing firms that we're doing placements for, looking for media buyer. We just put in a vice president of business development at one of the agencies just this week. I've got another company or a couple of company clients that are in the healthcare records space. So we're getting, Lucas Select's doing a lot more work in healthcare IT. So the type of people that, from a candidate perspective, that we generally have positions for are going to be strong sales professionals that do software enterprise sales. And those are, anybody that's out there that's listening now, that market's really tightening up for us. That candidate pool's tight. And so I'm always looking for good, strong enterprise sales folks. I'm looking for sales representatives and marketing people that like to work in fast-growing companies. So we generally don't do a lot of work with, the big IBMs or huge corporate clients of the world. We work with companies that really have openings that need to move quickly. They have urgent hiring needs, and we can usually get those closed pretty quickly, and that's why people come to us.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's been great interviewing you. I'd wanted to do this for a while, and hope if you guys like the show, please comment on it, connect. And also, I'm going to add one more thing to remind people of checking out our social selling.training. We've got our online fundamentals of social selling training course there that Greg and I put together and built. And if you contact us directly, there could be some type of discount code. So we'll just give a hint. And excellent show. Thanks again. And
thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. Have a good one.